All right, what's going on, everyone? TJ here from Rugby Muscle. Today, I'm going to be answering the question, do you need to do position-specific training in the gym? Sounds like an obvious question, but we're going to explore the answers in this video. Okay, so this question comes off the back of quite a few other questions that I've received, namely from most other... All right, so this question comes off the back of many other athletes and people that are looking into their strength and conditioning, and they're saying, right, I'm a back row, I'm a winger, I'm a scrum half, I'm a whatever position you play. What should my training, what should my S&C look like? And for me, that's the wrong question. This is a much more pertinent question for you and for you guys watching this video. It's also a sort of response, I guess, to things such as what I've seen on a lot on social media. It's also something I've seen, I was actually a part of when I was working for Rugby Dump. I wasn't making any commission, it wasn't for me. They were selling position-specific training programs, and it's an easy thing to think that you need. It's an easy sell, right? Because you play that position, this workout has been written specifically for that position. Like, it's a no-brainer. That's going to make me better at my position. Is it really though? Let's find out. Do you need to do position-specific training in the gym? Now, before I get into this, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment below any questions that you would like. As you can see, I'm answering the questions from the comments below, because actually I even received this one in a comment. So please ask any questions that you have in the comments below, or just give a comment for the algorithm. The earlier you do that, the less likely you are to forget about it. Please give that a thumbs up and give a comment, and subscribe if you're new to Rugby Muscle YouTube channel. So, why do we train in the gym? Like, what is the purpose? And I'm going to answer this question, then I'm going to answer a sequence of other questions to sort of really answer the initial question, hopefully by the end of the video. So, why do we train in the gym in the first place? Because it's not tactical preparation. We're not doing any sort of tactical work when we're in the gym. Nope. We're not doing any psychological work when we're in the gym. We're not doing any skill work when we're in the gym. We're not getting better as our skills. I mean, we could pass the ball around in our rest periods, or we could work specific like footwork stuff. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But really, we're not working any of those things. We're working physical preparation. We're preparing ourselves physically for the game of rugby. Nothing in the gym actually directly makes you a better rugby player. If that was true, you would just take the world powerlifting champion or the world CrossFit champion, you put them on a rugby field, they'd be the best player. No. The best players are the best players because they're the best players, not because of any one specific trait. They have to have they have to have a combination of all the traits, and they have to meet a certain minimum to compete and to allow them to express their skills. And that's what we're doing in the gym. We're giving ourselves potential for everything. We're giving ourselves a big base to be able to be a better rugby player. We're also allowing ourselves to stay healthy and injury-free. Again, giving ourselves more chance, more potential to improve, because we're able to make more training sessions, be less injured, be fitter, do more in our training sessions, etc., etc., etc. So it's not necessarily making yourselves the best player, but it's giving you the chance to be a best player. Everything that you're doing in the gym is to give yourself the potential to be a better player. And also, if you're a part-timer, if you're an amateur athlete, makes you a healthier player, makes you or a healthier human, makes you a stronger human, all the good things that you would want in the gym kind of anyway, right? So then we've come up with, and we've taken it a little bit further, what makes a better player, and we've got the rugby physical preparation or the rugby strength and conditioning pyramid. And I formulated this based off of all the different things that you can do in the gym, particularly as amateur athletes, because I think once you've reached the professional realm, we're not really dealing with too much of the bottom three of that level one. In fact, a lot of that level one is just being maintained, and then we're working on the tweaking the top of the pyramid. But you really do, as an amateur athlete or as a younger player or someone that isn't just as physically developed, maybe not as like naturally gifted as some players that might never actually have to work their hypertrophy like ever, then you need to spend a lot of time building out that base. And that's the reason that we've made this as a pyramid. It's because the bigger the base, this is how pyramids work, the bigger the base, the bigger the potential for that pyramid to be. And so just from this pyramid, you should understand that like the majority of your work should be on building that base if it's not there already. And it should then, if it's building out that base, it should be quite far away from specifics. In fact, with this pyramid itself, there is an inherent sort of like hierarchy to how to get to specific work. The higher up the pyramid you get, the more specific you get. And unfortunately, a lot of players that are either new to the game or that just don't quite understand strength and conditioning, they haven't answered that question that we've already asked. They chase specificity. They try and be as specific as they can. And because the general stuff seems a little bit more boring, it's not as sexy. So they think, no, I need to be trained specifically to be a rugby player. And so, yes, you do, but you don't need to chase the specifics within the game of rugby. You need to train specifically to be a better rugby player, but that is most of the time, and the vast majority of the time, developing more general properties. When we're chasing specificity, unfortunately, we limit ourselves, right? For example, we've got, if we really honed in on chasing specificity as a fly half, and we said, right, we just want to be the best kicker, that's in the NFL. That's them. That's their realm. Whereas if you're a fly half, you have to kick, you have to pass, you have to run, you have to tackle, you have to ruck. You still have to do everything in the game. And in fact, all the best rugby players are the most well-rounded. They don't have holes in the game. If you look at the what we've got here, all of the best rugby players that are in this sort of random list are really well-rounded. Like Finn Russell gets a lot of plaudits because he plays with a lot of flair, but he has a fucking solid kicking game as well, and he tackles and he does all the other stuff. Same with every single other player. Cheslin Colby, he stands out a lot because of his footwork, but he also has actually played fly half for Toulouse. Semi-Ran Radrak can offload and can pass, but he's also really good at running, really good at tackling, and reads the game really well. Like every single player, the better you get is by being more well-rounded. And especially if you're an amateur rugby player, the more well-rounded you can get, the more confident you're going to be wherever you find yourself on the pitch. And that's sort of the situation that you want to be. Rugby isn't a game for specialists. That's American football. You do your one job, and that's your one job. Rugby, you have to do every job, especially in open play. Like we can talk a little bit more about set piece. But in rugby, it's a very open game, and you have to do a lot. And so, the specific stuff, not really. It doesn't really exist there. And then if we're talking about, well, actually, I want to, train my specific traits. Again, it's tempting, but it just doesn't make any sense because, especially for, those, the less you are trained, because then you're robbing yourself of that wider base. You're developing the top of the pyramid before you've got your base sorted out. And then it's just going to, have more potential to topple over, not be as stable, to not give you as good a development. And that's the reason that we developed this as a pyramid, because unfortunately, the more specific you get, the less diverse you get, which means the opposite flips around. The more general you train, the more potential you have to feed into everything. And you can see this if you look at the bottom right here with this diagram of the pyramid. Everything feeds up the pyramid. So the bigger muscles you have, so the more hypertrophy you get, the bigger your muscles have, the more potential you have for speed, for power, for strength, for your core work, for special strength, for all of this stuff, because you've got bigger muscles. If you're trying to work the special strength and you haven't got the musculature to really develop that strength, you're going to be capped. You've got that ceiling. So the more you develop this general stuff, the higher your ceiling is for everything else that you do. And it sounds weird, but then it actually means that you can get a lot more from less, because you're training these general properties that are feeding into all of these different areas. That's all you have to train. You don't have to then train 5 different areas, because you're covering all your bases by getting bigger, fitter, etc. And you can look at more videos on the rugby strength and conditioning pyramid to understand exactly how it works, but that's generally it, right? The more general your training is, the more potential you have in all these different areas. And we've got this picture of Pocock here because, again, he's not good just because he's big and strong. No, he's good because he's just a very well-rounded player, and he's also got, clearly enough hypertrophy to support everything else, but he hasn't tried to, be strong without developing that hypertrophy. So become big and fit, and then he's developed all of the extra stuff on top of it. And so when you're looking at a game of rugby where you've got multiple different demands, it makes sense to train the general stuff where you're getting multiple benefits and really big bang for your buck with very few different modalities, exercises, sets, whatever you want to call it, right? It makes more sense that you're training this general stuff because it's going to feed into all of the different areas that make you a better rugby player. Now, maybe there is still a time to be specific, so let's think about that. And first and foremost, I want you to understand that the very first place that you need to be specific isn't necessarily with the program itself. It's actually with the movements that you're doing. So if you're training for your for hypertrophy, or if you're doing a run, if you're doing whatever you're doing, like, you should train every movement like you're trying to do that movement the best. I've spoken about this in a previous video. I'll link it above in that little eye thing there that you'll see. But it's really important that every single set that you do is you're trying to execute the movement to your best ability. That means that then it's going to transfer across. I see a lot of people trying to transfer or trying to train really specific stuff, but they're half-assed in their movements. They don't even squat very well. Like, do everything as best as you can, and that in itself is being specific. You see Owen Farrell here, he's not doing, he's doing a very general movement. He's doing a double kettlebell squat here. And no, he's not squatting a huge amount of weight, but he's doing it with the perfect form, which allows him to then get the benefits that he wants from it, and then he's going to train more specific when he goes to the gym. When he goes onto the field. And by doing that, when he goes onto the field, that allows him to express that extra strength, extra mobility, all of the physical traits that he's been working on, expressed by working his skills. And you can see him here with Johnny Wilkinson working on his kicking, and you can see him here doing his passing in training. Like, this is something that a lot of amateur players don't ever see with the professionals, is that they will spend like hours just working a single closed skill to get as good as possible at that skill. I don't see that in rugby. In amateur rugby, where you'll be, even if you turn up 15 minutes early to training, the first 25 minutes of training, or first 10 minutes at least, is spent just doing, shit touch, as everybody calls it, where no one's actually getting any better from doing that. Whereas if you spent just that time, or in your rest periods, just working the skills, use your skills to be specific, right? So if you're a hooker, spend some time working on your hooker throws. If you're a back row, spend some time just working on the skill of getting it over in a jackal. Where if you're a winger, spend some time developing your chip and catch and chip and chase skills. Whatever your position, or whatever the player you want to be, work the skills to become that player. It doesn't start in the gym. It starts from doing the skill, developing that skill base to be the player that you want to be. And then maybe there's a time to be specific where you've already developed the strength, developed the hypertrophy, developed the base, that you then want to sort of actualize it. So you want to then replicate it. And that would be when you would work your way up the pyramid, is you go from being a bigger athlete to then, maximizing the amount of strength that you have with that bigger size. Or if you're a fitter player, working maximizing the amount of work that you can do with that fitness and get the best out of yourself. And you would work your way up the pyramid and be more specific. And then even then, it's still, when you're in the gym, it's still general prep. Like Owen Farrell here is working on his core in this move on the side. And that is like quite specific to passing, right? Because he's developing the core. Maybe you can do some extra work on rotation. But what you're then doing is you're developing that general strength to produce a better pass, which you can only do by practicing your passing. You're not going to never pass and all of a sudden get better at passing. No, you have to practice the skill of it. And that's kind of how you get specific. Even then in the gym, it's still kind of general stuff, right? It's still working specifically what you want, but not necessarily like working something that, like, you're not using a weighted ball to pass, or you're not exactly simulating what you're trying to get better at. You're actually just improving the different traits that you want to improve. And that's how you get specific, right? You look at your game, and it kind of includes your position, right? So you would talk about position specific demands. So maybe your, what you need to do. So if you're a hooker, you might need to throw in. If you're a scrum half, you're going to need to get to the base of a ruck and practice your passing. If you're a fly half, you might need to kick, but you might not, because there might be another player who kicks for sticks on your team, but you'll still need to kick out of hand, right? So you look at what you need to do. You also look at what you would like to do. So if you're, and this would depend on you and your team and your style, how you would play, because then you would look at what you want to improve upon. So if you're a prop, that doesn't mean to say that you should not work on your passing. Maybe that's the thing that you want to develop. Maybe you're already good enough at scrummaging and rucking and tackling, etc. You want to develop your passing. Maybe you're good enough at those things, but you want to get better at those things. It's completely up to you and your style, not necessarily just your position. Now, when you want to rank yourself is looking at the different traits that we've got here on a physical preparation pyramid. That would be how you get specific. Like, again, it's not specific to you as a player. It's not really specific. I mean, it's not specific to you and your position. It's not really specific in terms of replicating exactly what you think you need to do. It's actually specific in terms of what it is you need to improve upon. And then you work out how you need to improve upon those things, whether that's by getting bigger, by getting stronger, by getting just generally fitter, or whether it's by getting more mobile or getting, better movement by working on your single leg balance, whatever it could be. You've got to figure out what you need to do to improve. Do not fall for the mistake that I see time and time again with strength and conditioning, with fitness in general, is just copying others, because that's not going to work for you. You need to look at what you need to develop as a player, and that's how you be specific. It's useless taking a program or copying a program from someone else that is specific to them, even if they're your position, because they might have completely different needs to what you need. So even then, when you figured out, right, I need to do some position specific things, I need to improve, and we'll take this example in this video for scrummaging, right? You decide that you need to improve your scrummaging, but you could replace that with whatever you position specific thing that you think you need to improve upon. And you ask yourself the question, do I need to train this specifically, like in the gym? And for the most situations, the answer is still going to be no. For example, we'll look at taking the scrummager. If you're taking someone that's like losing scrums and you're a prop and you're not winning the scrums that you think that you're supposed to be winning, and you're suffering in the scrums, is it because you're just not generally big and strong enough? If that is the answer, don't worry about doing specific scrum stuff in the gym. Worry about just being bigger and stronger. If you're big and strong enough, but you're getting twisted and turned and you're not really working it, do you need to do specific stuff in the gym? Or do you need to do like actually one-on-one scrummaging to feel how different people move? Remember, when you're in the gym, you're not getting the same reactions that a human being would. So that is much better off for you to really go one-on-one with an opponent or 3-on-3 and get that feel of the different forces that go into you and learn how to deal with those and manipulate your opponent. You could even say the same for different agility things. When you're trying to beat an opponent, you're trying to beat an opponent. You're not trying to step around cones or ladders. You're trying to beat opponents. So you want to find out that skill by beating opponents and by practicing against live opposition, because that is how you get better. That's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to do a rehearsed dance or a rehearsed move. No, you're trying to react to an opponent and beat them. And then if you answer those questions and you say, yes, I do need to do this specific thing in the gym, I'm already strong enough, I'm getting enough skill work, I want to develop this physical trait, absolutely fine. Then you ask yourself the question, you look at them, you figure out the movement, and you ask yourself the question, will this train what I want? Again, more often than not, I see people just copying movements that they see on Instagram that they think look pretty cool, but they don't actually work. For example, this useless thing here that this guy's doing to improve his scrummaging by holding a barbell. If you're holding the barbell, the force is you're pushing your force up because you're pushing up away from the barbell. This is not how you scrummage. I don't care what he's put a thing on his neck here maybe, but the battle of a scrum is this direction, pushing each other forward until you have to manipulate and turn and turn and turn. That's not done in this movement. This movement is maybe a bit of core work, which is all fine and dandy, but it's not specific to the scrum. Whereas you've got this other movement, which is on another one of my YouTube videos, with me doing a scrum engage against a squat rack. Now, you could question my position. I've never been in the front row outside of 7, so I don't really know what I'm doing. It's not the perfect, and it's a few years ago. I definitely know how I could clean up that form, but you get the idea. And someone that is a front row could do that, and they could express that isometric strength pushing this direction, and they would get some improvements. Now, would that be necessary? Well, hopefully they've answered all of the questions and they've decided that this is necessary, so then they're doing it, so then they improve. From there, you've got to understand that, like, even then, like, you figured out that this is what you need to do, you've got to understand when to do it. Because it's no use just adding that in because because it could be a lot of wasted time. If you end up being specific, as you already said, the specific stuff doesn't bleed down to general. All of the general stuff bleeds up and you get better because of it in many different areas. So if you're doing that scrum specific isometric drill, you're not developing many other traits. You're really just focused on that scrum, and therefore that's all well and good for your scrum, but it misses out on other areas like maybe your ruck or maybe your general strength for mauling or whatever it is, right? Just your general strength, maybe your general leg hypertrophy, whatever, right? you're losing out on that stuff when you're doing the scrum specific stuff. So you only want to do this when your general work is slow. And there's two different ways it can be slow. It can be slow to show a transfer to your game. So you're experiencing a little bit of an increase in strength or hypertrophy or whatever, and you're still feeling that it's not really making the improvements that you thought it might in your game. That might be a cue to then move to more specific stuff. Another cue might be that you're improving at such a slow rate that you don't really see it improving. So for example, if you're really trying to gain some size, or if you're trying to gain some strength, and it's like 2.5 kilos in a year added of really hard work, maybe then it'd be much better to splice in some specific stuff. And again, you just work up the pyramid, develop as specific as you can, and you would do that for the short term before going back down to the general stuff. The higher up on the pyramid you go, the more specific you get, which means the faster you'll lose those gains when you stop doing them. So that means it's probably not best to do them in the off season, because if you spend a 4-week period like developing some real good specific footwork drills to become a better stepper, and then you don't play for 4 months and you don't train it, you're not going to experience that improvement. Whereas if you do it in season and then you feel it improve in your game, then you'll use it in your game and you'll continue to keep improving. You're also able to improve at these traits faster. So you don't need to do specific footwork stuff for 12 months on end. You would splice it in with or specific scrum stuff or whatever. You would splice it in about 4 to 8 weeks at a time before cycling back out, going back down the pyramid to more general stuff, or further back up to get even more specific. And again, so because those traits are very quick to come, but they're very quick to plateau and they're very quick to drop off. It's another reason why, if you don't need to, you shouldn't worry about training those things. You should stay being general. You should do the general stuff to get that improvement. Do not make the mistake of thinking that means that it's not rugby specific. It's still rugby specific, because you're improving in all these different areas and you're able to express yourself better as a rugby player because you're getting generally stronger, fitter, bigger, etc. So my final point on this is that position specific stuff is it does have a small place, but it's more about how you want to play and how the small things that you might have to do in your set piece. But more importantly, you want to be specific about how you want to play. And it's not necessarily the physical traits that even dictate how you want to play or where you want to play. It's how you want to play the game, and then what you need to do to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. First and foremost, you're going to do that by improving your skills. You're not going to use the gym to do that. You're going to use the gym to get bigger, stronger, fitter, faster. If you're worrying about doing real specific stuff, remember, the more time that you're doing specific stuff, the more time you're not doing general stuff that is getting you bigger, stronger, fitter, faster, and the more that you're not doing your skill stuff. So save the specific stuff for the most part for doing your skill work, for your actual rugby training, for playing the game. In the gym, you're trying to get generally better, bigger, stronger, fitter, faster, etc. in order to become a better player. Now, there are certain things that, certain physical aspects to rugby that you want to improve. And so what I'll do in a follow-up video to this is give you specific guidances of different movements that you can use to improve specific circumstances. So for example, if you want to become a better jackler, if you want to become a better passer of the ball from the base of a ruck, I can give you some specific movements that will help you slightly with your transference. Now, obviously, as I've said, with all the caveats, you would only do it for 4 to 6 weeks at a time, at the right time when it's needed. If you have an idea of a skill that you want to improve, or a physical trait that you want to improve, physical aspect of rugby, a real specific scenario in rugby that you want to improve, comment it in the video or in the comments below, and I'll get to it. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.